All right, we're live. Check the mic. Instant reaction late on a Friday night Eastern time. Maxx Crosby has been traded from the Las Vegas Raiders to the Baltimore Ravens for 2 first-round picks. Just broke, and we're here to react to it, Sam. Lamar Jackson had some cryptic tweets earlier today, like something was going down. He knew it was happening. What were your initial thoughts here on Crosby going to the Ravens?
Yeah, Lamar Jackson's got form for that, I think. He had cryptic tweets before, and it was when he was getting his contract extension. So when Lamar tweets something, got to pay attention, got to keep your head in a swivel. Something's going down. I'm also personally delighted because on a radio hit earlier, I called out the Ravens as the most likely landing spot for Maxx Crosby. So
wow,
it's a big day for everybody, really.
I'm happy that it was a win for you. This is a very aggressive move. We're seeing some teams around the league. We've talked on our shows this week about the Packers making that aggressive move for Micah Parsons. By the way, I think the irony that the Cowboys were very much in this mix for 2 1s for Maxx Crosby when that was like the same exact deal that they made for Micah Parsons. Whole different story. You'd be saving, as of right now, maybe $10 to $12 million a year, Crosby versus Parsons. But just fascinating that the Cowboys, after making the move, may have been in the mix, but it's the Ravens, right? Some teams that don't always make these aggressive moves, love to build through the draft, and it's Baltimore that said, our pass rush was awful last year. We got to go get Maxx Crosby right now.
Yeah, and that's why I think it did make a degree of sense for them. Like they had no kind of edge rush last year. A whole bunch of players that had like PFF pass rushing grades in the 50s. That Mike Green, who was sort of supposed to come in and really turbocharge that pass rush, be a real steal for them where they got him in the draft. Ended up with like 30-something pressures, like really wasn't a big factor at all for them. And what I think made it interesting to me, or why I think that they were potentially an option, is number one, it was such a departure over everything that had happened for so long in Baltimore that it led to regime change effectively, right? Like they fired John Harbaugh at the end of it. Like major things shifted within that organization. So to me, it's like, well, you almost start throwing out the form book. You start throwing out this is the way we do things, right? Like all bets are off. Harbaugh's gone for the first time in 15 years. Fundamental changes needed to be made, at which point, why not go aggressively after a big name impact kind of pass rusher? I'm not saying I would do it, but I'm saying I understand why all of a sudden the Baltimore Ravens would be a potential landing spot for him in a way you wouldn't say in other years. So I think I get it why they were in the market.
You could kind of sense that from the meetings with ownership and Eric DeCosta at the end of the season that they wanted some a little pressure on Eric DeCosta to make a move right now. So I do wonder how much it was kind of pushed, kind of like the reports coming out of Indianapolis. They made the move for 2 first rounders. A lot of defensive players going for 2 first rounders in the last 6 months here. Ownership from Indianapolis kind of encouraging Chris Ballard. Hey, I know you do a lot of by the books and you draft and develop, but could you go make an aggressive move? Wonder how much this was coming from the top in Baltimore to Eric DeCosta as well. So we have Maxx Crosby there, Tavius Robinson. We have Mike Green, who you mentioned. Look, I still have faith in Mike Green developing as a player and thought he got a little bit better down the stretch. I think this opens things up for him, gives the Ravens the impact pass rusher they need. I don't think Crosby's done from a career perspective. He's going to be 29 for this season, just re-signed with the Raiders before, just got an extension in 25 before the season. We're talking cap hits at 35, 29, 27, 28 range over the next few years, and maybe a little bit of room to manipulate those, but nothing crazy unless he's looking for a new deal as well, because other players are making 40, but it's reasonably priced given where the TJ Watts and Myles Garrett's and Micah Parsons of the edge rush world have ended up in recent years.
Yeah, I mean, if you can keep him on the same contract, it's a pretty reasonable deal in terms of Baltimore bringing him in financially. 2 first-round picks is steep, but if you can get him back to where he's been, he is an impact playmaker. The risk would be you can't. Right now, as you said, he's not aged out of being an elite player. Like he's still not even 29. He's got some time left on the side. Like we're We're talking about Trey Hendrickson's been an elite player, and he's 2 years older. Myles Garrett, TJ Watt, these players have been elite, and they're a year older than Maxx Crosby. So he's not aged out of that point, but it has been a couple of years since we saw the best play of Maxx Crosby. And unlike some of these other guys, like he's battled through a lot of injuries over that time. There was like a 3-year period, I think, where he was right up there, with the genuine all-pro defensive player of the year caliber edge rushers, the likes of Garrett, TJ Watt, Hendrickson, Micah Parsons. I think Maxx Crosby was right up there with those guys for like a 3-year period, maybe. But it's now been a couple of years since that, and his production has really dropped off. His grading has dropped off. You look at PFF grades, the pass rush win rate has dropped off. Like everything has really gone downhill over the last couple of years. That would be the worry. Like, have those injuries, the Instagram shot of his knee the size of a cow in between games, has that left like a permanent, diminishing of his powers? Or if you get him 100% healthy, refocused on a better overall team, can you immediately click back into, all right, Maxx Crosby is back to being one of the best pure defenders in football?
We should at least lay that out, what you're saying here. If you're looking at PFF grades over the last few years and where that has progressed, and snap count over the last few years, 3 straight years, three straight years right around 1,000 snaps, 2021, 22, and 23. He was either just under or just over 1,000 snaps. 90 plus PFF grade in all 3 seasons. That dropped to 766 snaps and a 75 grade in 24, 935 snaps and 82 grade last year. So still, almost 1,000 snaps last year. He's been very durable, battled through stuff, as you mentioned. His performance, by that measure, has gone down just a little bit. But at his best, he's not over the hill. Still somewhat in the middle of his prime, even if you say there's a bit of a decline in the last couple of years. Good run defender, excellent pass rusher, high energy player, not because that's cliche, because that's literally how he plays. And that's what the Ravens are getting on that side of the ball. And you talk about, given the other options at that position, that's why they were aggressive, and they give up this year's first rounder and next year's first rounder. Now, from a Raiders perspective, unless you have something else to add from a Baltimore perspective.
No, just the only other point would be, in addition to, the injuries that he's played through, like just he's played a lot. I mean, this is someone who in a 7-year career. So I think is Josh Hines Allen, I think, and him came in the same year. He's played like 1,000 more snaps over that time than Josh Hines Allen. And that includes
came in a year later, wasn't it? 2019. Yeah, 2019 draft.
And that includes the time that he missed injured. Like, he's played a ton of snaps. So you're talking about a guy who's battled through injury and just played like a lot of mileage on the clock for somebody of his age. So again, I don't think he's aged out of being a potentially elite player, but you are projecting that you can get him back there.
I'll just say this too: the way Crosby plays, I think he wanted to make it work with the Raiders. I think he'll be rejuvenated going to Baltimore, going to a historically good franchise from the last 10, 20 years. I think that's going to work in his favor after a couple playoff appearances with the Raiders, 1 or 2, and dealing with a perennial last place team year after year and still playing hard, playing through the injuries and the whole thing. I think he'll be rejuvenated going to Baltimore. I think they're banking on some of that as well. So from a Raiders perspective, it's a no-brainer, right? I mean, they're getting pick 14 in the draft this year and next year's first rounder. And we're talking about the Jets have 3 first rounders next year. Cowboys have, do they have, who else has 2 next year? Well, the Raiders do now. Teams getting set up for next year as well in a loaded draft. And man, picking at 14 now, so you can get Mendoza at 1. And we had theorized, hey, if you ever wanted to get the haul from Mendoza and really rebuild this franchise, well, they're able to do it now with Maxx Crosby.
Yeah, a reminder for everyone that's tuning in late: 2 first-round picks is the capital that Baltimore gave up for Maxx Crosby in this trade. When this first started getting talked about as a potential, hey, Maxx Crosby might be available via trade, 2 first-round picks, I think, was always generally the kind of starting point of where people were with what that value would be. And my initial kind of instinct to that is, I'll keep the player. Like, if he leaves, who have you got on? Like, nobody's there on defense, and you're going to need somebody on this franchise, and it's just probably not worth it. But the more you think about it and you start bringing up that, look, he's almost 29. He's got a lot of miles on the clock. It's a couple of years since his best days. His contract is probably not going to get better. Like, I imagine he's either going to want to get re-upped, or, you're getting to the bad years of the contract anyway. It does make sense from the Raiders' point of view to just take the 2 first-round draft picks. You're drafting Mendoza, try and surround him with something and cash in now. I think it becomes definitely a deal the Raiders take. And then from Baltimore's perspective, I get it. I understand why you make this move. The relative certainty of Maxx Crosby, whatever about where he can get back to. If he doesn't get any better, bounce anywhere near back to his best, he's still a huge upgrade over what they had last year. So from that perspective, like, the certainty of just being able to at least upgrade pretty significantly, one of their biggest problems, is worth doing. And then potentially, if you get him back to where he was, then he's absolutely worth 2 first-round picks.
James Palmer just put a tweet or a post out there on Twitter or X, depending on what you want to call it. No breaking news or anything, but he's saying, he says, I kept going back to a conversation I had with John Spytek, the Raiders GM, at the Combine. He said they had to be very sober with where they were as an organization and a roster as they were approaching this offseason. He said that stuck with me. And he goes on about Crosby and, moving on from Crosby. Now, we didn't nail everything this week when we talked about fixing every team in 5 minutes and what they should do. But when we talked about the Raiders, we said, look, over the last few years, we've made this statement. You're probably the worst team in the division. You can think long-term. You should think long-term. And in previous years, they didn't. They traded for they were the team making the move on the other side, trading big picks for Devontae Adams in 2022. They were trading for Geno Smith last year at this time, I think on a Friday night, trading for Geno, a third rounder, which turned into $58 million for 1 year of the interception leader. And so I believe the Raiders are making the right move here to say, I know it's tough as a Raiders fan. You love Maxx Crosby. You hope he could be a Raider for life. You hope he could be a part of the rebuild. It's just good business at this point to take 2 first rounders, including one at 14 right now, with all of the holes that you have. They had one good defensive playmaker. It was Crosby. They need way more, and they need younger, more cost-controlled talent here with Fernando Mendoza, their QB of the future. They got to revamp the offensive line, a couple pieces there, and they just need a plethora of defensive playmakers. This is the right move for the Raiders, and it took a few years across multiple regimes to say this needs to be a rebuild. We're by far the worst team in the AFC West. There's 2 playoff teams in the Chiefs in our division. We have to think about 2027 and beyond, and that's what this move does.
It is interesting, though, what a big departure it is for Baltimore. I got our guy Anthony put in the Slack chat a tweet from, I'm going to butcher his name, Jeff Zrebiek. Apologies. Basically said this is the first time the Ravens have ever traded a first-round pick for a veteran in team history. Now, the team history is only, turn of the century. It's not like we're going back to the 50s or anything.
1996 was the first year for the Ravens.
Right. But it's like, this is the first time they've ever done that. So it is a major institutional departure in policy of how they go about doing things. The Ravens way, they've been a draft and develop team, and they've gone hard and thrown 2 first-round picks to try and fix this problem and brought in Maxx Crosby.
That's why I do wonder how much owner Steve Bisciotti had to nudge Eric DeCosta along here. You're talking Ozzie Newsome as the GM, handing it off to Eric DeCosta, the style that they have. This is what I love about team building season. It's what I love about the NFL and having these discussions. It's the complete opposite of what we talk about with the Rams. The Rams have a completely different strategy in how they value first-round picks. They flip them for players all the time. They've had a lot of success. The Ravens, they draft and develop, sign some, let others walk, pick up comp picks, but continue to replenish through the draft historically, and they have a lot of success. And now I always love when teams deviate a little bit from the strategy. Are they learning something, or is there a little bit more pressure on Eric DeCosta? Hey, status quo is no longer good enough. Because look, it's not like the Ravens are coming off of multiple bad seasons here. They're 2 years removed from being the number 1 seed, the best team in the NFL. They went to the AFC Championship and they had a disappointing loss to the Chiefs. It's not like it's all falling apart, but they're coming off a very, very disappointing season, and they're answering with an aggressive move. And look, there's downside with what happens with the Ravens, right? I mean, there's downside here if Crosby, the injuries, if he doesn't live up, if he just has, above average production rather than elite production, you could say, man, you don't want that. Instead of, you'd rather have your 2 picks. There's downside with any move. Of course, the Raiders could miss on their picks, but either way, there's elements of a win-win here. But I think it's a bold move for Baltimore, and as you laid out, certainly outside of the norm in how they normally operate.
I mean, that's the risk slash downside with any time you're trading, players away for draft picks is what if you screw up those draft picks? And the
Right.
Raiders, I mean, the last time they had a bunch of first round picks, it went absolutely terribly. But you have to assume you're able to draft. I mean, that's just part of the deal, right? If you work on the basis that we cannot identify talent in the draft, then you're done anyway. It doesn't matter what you do. So you have to assume you're going to make at least decent use out of the draft picks.
You can't be a fan that says, well, I can't trust my team because they've never drafted well. Like, I mean, at some point, it's still the right strategy. And at some point, you hope you draft well. Like the Lions never drafted well until they did. So you just hope that they do it. So anyway, we'll call it a win-win here. I don't think it's as clear as a win-win as maybe Rams Chiefs. I think that one made a lot of sense. I would be excited. I mean, the mystery box deal for the Raiders, I think it's sad to see a Crosby go, but having pick 14 to immediately have the ability to grab an offensive lineman, a pass catcher. I mean, we could be talking Fernando Mendoza and Jordan Tyson. We could be talking Fernando Mendoza and a starting tackle, a Monroe Freeling, whoever it may be, a guard, Vengo Ioane. I mean, it could just be a defensive player. They could get the next edge off the board, but Ruben Bain could fall to 14. There's a lot of options here for the Raiders at 14, which is a pretty solid spot.
You do have to wonder from Baltimore's perspective, do they have line of sight on what the market is going to look like for Trey Hendrickson, say, right? Because Trey Hendrickson, I mean, you're going to be paying Maxx Crosby a fair chunk of money. Trey Hendrickson is, a couple of years older, but let's call them at similar levels right now. With the unknown of what exactly Maxx Crosby is going to be, with the unknown of what exactly Trey Hendrickson is going to be coming back off his injury, but presume he's probably coming back 100% healthy. Like, did they know that number is going to go insane and they just can't go there? Or have they decided that a couple of years younger Maxx Crosby is effectively worth 2 first-round draft picks to go for him over a guy like Trey Hendrickson? I mean, that
you're saying the Ravens, like if they could have just gone free agency with Hendrickson.
Right. Like if the Ravens could have won a Trey Hendrickson bidding war for $35 million a year or whatever on a, 2-3 year deal and don't give up 2 first-round draft picks, you're probably having the same impact.
Yeah, they might see Crosby as a better overall player. I mean, you're right, though. It's a big – first off, they hate going big in free agency. The comp pick thing, though, I mean, if you're afraid of losing a comp pick here and there, you should be more afraid of losing a couple firsts. They might see Crosby as a better all-around player. Hendrickson maybe as the better pure pass rusher at this point. I don't know how much they care about left and right end. Crosby playing on the left side and Mike Green playing on the right side where Hendrickson, has played on the right side historically. I don't know how much that weighs in. But, yeah, you're basically paying for the certainty of getting the player versus getting into a bidding war, as you're saying. It could have gotten out of hand for Hendrickson, for Jalen Phillips and his injury concerns. You're going to get in the sure thing, but you got to pay a pretty penny for it.
And maybe with the illegal tampering that's been going on, they know that the number on Trey Hendrickson is already going to a place that they don't want any part of or that they can't really get to. But if they don't, like if they think that Hendrickson, if that number is going to stay somewhere like even remotely connected to where Crosby's contract is, I mean, then you're paying a lot to get a couple of years younger for Crosby.
Man, Friday night, Raiders always make moves. Always making moves, coming in hot before legal tampering. So we're going to be reacting all weekend. Might not sleep this weekend, Sam. If news breaks at 2 a.m. I remember back in the day, I think the RG3 trade when Washington traded up to number 2 to all but ensure RG3. I want to say that happened at like midnight. Like I was over there checking my phone before bed type of deal, and it was like Washington trades up. They're getting RG3 behind Andrew Luck, if I remember correctly. So never know. when the news is going to be going to break. Make sure you hit subscribe. Stick with us here. We'll go live at any point, and then Monday at noon, join us all afternoon as we react to all the news in free agency. Check the mic. Live reaction.